What works better, repetition or reach? From South Wales, the latest from our daily newsletter at podnews.net. The number of times that podcast listeners hear the same ad has soared over the past year, more than doubling, according to research from Podsites. In a blog post, Westwood One's Pierre Bouvard suggests prioritising reach over frequency. You'll find that linked from our show notes and our newsletter at podnews.net. The Creators sounds profitable, and Edison Research's research into people that make podcasts has published a full transcript as well as a video of the webinar. The Podcasting Seriously Awards Fund has expanded to include reimbursements for education and training for BIPOC and LGBTQ+ independent producers, editors and other creators. Mediatel has launched Audioscape, which they call the UK's first interactive directory of the audio industry. It's free and available to everyone. Buzzsprout's data for June shows a small drop for consumption share via Apple Podcasts, down from 40.7% to 39.4%. Spotify has also increased by a percentage point. Acast and the New York Times have agreed a podcast ad sales deal for the UK. Many media companies use Acast to monetize podcast programming outside of its country of origin. Sound Carrot is a new website calling itself the best place to discover the greatest kids podcasts. The name comes from owner Tristan's 10-year-old daughter. And out of all podcast episodes published in June, Buzzsprout saw a decline of market share to 8.1%, according to Livewire. The company's still the number 2 podcast host after Anchor, though. Amazon CloudFront is still responsible for more than 50% of all podcast downloads, and Spotify's Chartable and Podtrack both saw an increased amount of use as tracking tools. In People News, Chris Stark has quit BBC Radio to join Global as a presenter and producer of the Capital FM Breakfast Show, and a remit to expand sports content in Global Player. He's also a co-presenter of That Peter Crouch podcast, now with Acast, and hosts shows with Scott Mills on BBC Radio 1. Mills moves to Radio 2 later this year. And in podcast news, when 2 reporters start digging into the porn industry, they make quite the discovery. Porn relies on performers to literally bear it all. But information about who runs the industry is kept like a state secret. Hot Money discovers who's really pulling the strings. It's from Pushkin, and we thank them for their support this month. The latest episode of Our Voices features me talking about 2 role models that shaped my outlook on life. It's a really beautifully produced 15 minutes of storytelling. You'll learn about Michael and Steve, the power of mentorship and learning. It's a great listen, highly recommended. The UEFA Women's Euro 22 starts today. That's soccer if you're in America. And The Guardian's Women's Football Weekly has been launched to cover the tournament as part of wider coverage. Hosted by Faye Carruthers and Suzanne Rack, the show will be released twice a week. Top Billin' with Bill Bellamy is what you get when you unite hip-hop and comedy. Filmed on the Walk of Fame in Hollywood each week, the comedian-actor speaks candidly with leading figures in music, comedy, sports and more from the past and present. That launches today. And the podcast that provided daily messages of comfort and respite during 2020's unpleasantness is now back under a new name, The Lighthouse. In each daily episode, host Mark Steadman brings warm, friendly and tangent-filled conversation to listeners facing isolation or in need of an audio hug. It's been described as how the shipping forecast would sound if it cared about how your day went, which is something that people in the UK will understand and people outside the UK will have no idea. And that's the latest from our newsletter. To read all the stories and subscribe, we're at podnews.net.